Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. In a special edition to mark the beginning of a new season, we're focusing on the plight of Afghan and Iranian women. It's been 3 years since the Taliban regained control of Afghanistan and thus erasing women from all forms of public life. It's also 2 years since the death of Mahsa Amini, who was killed while in detention by the Iranian morality police for seemingly showing too much hair under her veil. Her death prompting the biggest protest movement in Iran since the 1979 revolution. So let's take a look at where things currently stand for women in each country.
Singing for women's rights. These Afghan women living abroad denounced new Taliban laws, taking to social media with hashtags like Free Afghan Women or Let Us Exist. Some tear a photo of the Taliban supreme leader. The regime imposed new rules in August. Singing, reading or even talking in public is now illegal for Afghan women. Why? Because their voices could, quote, lead men into temptation and vice, according to the Taliban.
Whenever an adult woman leaves her home out of necessity, she is obliged to conceal her voice, face and body.
Sharia law restricts the lives of more than 14 million girls and women, with little action from the rest of the world.
Day by day, Afghan women are being erased from society. The international community and the world outside has an important role to take meaningful actions, to seriously consider including gender apartheid as a crime against humanity.
Since the Taliban took power 3 years ago, around 1 million Afghans have fled to neighbouring Iran, where women's rights are also violated, but where girls are at least tolerated at school. Recently, a mother of 2 was shot and paralysed by police after she allegedly refused to wear a hijab in her car. This just 2 years after the death of Mahsa Amini and deadly protests against the Iranian regime and women's oppression.
And joining me now from Edmonton in Canada is Zahra Nader, an Afghan-Canadian journalist and editor-in-chief of the Zan Times, a woman-led investigative newsroom that covers human rights violations in Afghanistan. And also with me in the studio is Mahsa Alimardani, a senior researcher with the human rights organisation Article 19. She's also a specialist in Iranian affairs. Thanks to both of you for giving us your time. Zahra, let me start with you. Just explain what life is like these days for women and girls in Afghanistan.
For instance, we have been recently reported on the issue that since the beginning of the year, in January and December last year, the Taliban started a crackdown, basically targeting particular women, particularly including Hazara women in areas in Kabul, where they arrested women over what they called violation of their dress code. However, these women told us that they were fully dressed, that there was nothing that the Taliban would say it's against the hijab, but because they were lonely women, young women, they were arrested by the Taliban. We reported on these issues, but suddenly we learned that the Taliban initially confirmed this arrest, but later they denied it completely, and it started a campaign asking the elders to come out and talk about these issues and that this arrest had never happened. So we ask a question of why the Taliban is going at this length or trying to deny these reports. And we find our answers when we talk with some of the families and some of these girls that these women were sexually harassed and raped in the Taliban prison. So one of those girls killed herself the night she was freed from the Taliban prison. Another one was found dead 22 days after she was arrested because of the hijab. So this is the situation that the regimes are working, their entire operation is in how to make women invisible, how to remove them from society. And rape in Afghanistan is a good method for them to do so.
Mahsa, I'm going to bring you in now. Since the death of Mahsa Amini 2 years ago, we've seen unprecedented protests in Iran. There's been an incredible harsh crackdown on women. However, there also is now a new president, a successor to the hardliner Ibrahim Raisi. This man has been touted as a reformist, so therefore, is it likely that women's rights will improve in the country?
So this has been a perception that has somewhat been shared by analysts and in the media that there should be some hope with Pezeshkian. And frankly, if you look at his actions, he's had years of service within government, within academia in Iran, and his actions have proven that there really shouldn't be any hope banked on this man for women's rights improving. While he was teaching at Tabriz University, you know, he's a medic, it was well known among students that he enforced good hijab. There's even rumors of violent tactics to ensure that women obeyed hijab while he had his tenure at that university. Of course, during the campaign to invigorate voting, to put out promises, there were lots of campaign talking points about how he was going to improve conditions. But what we do know is that ultimately power lies within the supreme leader's hands and his office, and the president has very limited capacity for power and rule within Iran. So ultimately, policies are set with someone else. And his actions have proven that even if power was in his hands, it wouldn't necessarily prove to be what folks think.
Zahra, there was uproar recently when Afghan women were excluded from the UN-led meeting in Qatar. Do you think meetings like this, which exclude women and, along with civil society representatives, give the Taliban a form of official recognition?
We definitely believe that this, if not recognition, it legitimizes the Taliban. It says that women's rights do not matter. That is the message it's sending. Because Afghanistan is the worst country for women. And the UN Special Rapporteur for Afghanistan is saying that the Taliban, what's happening in Afghanistan is crime against humanity. So in a country that's crime against humanity is being committed by the regime in power, and you're inviting them to Doha, to this international platform meeting with representatives of different countries, and you're excluding women, and you're excluding women's rights from the agenda. So what is there to talk about? This is basically the Taliban setting the tone of what they want to be happening, what they want to see. And we are seeing that the UN is accommodating that. The UN is accepting that. And it set the precedents that women's rights, human rights do not matter, or it do not matter in countries like Afghanistan.
It must be very depressing for you, though.
It definitely is, because I'm a journalist. I have been working on covering human rights issues in Afghanistan now almost 3 years, and we don't see a lot of accountability. The only thing we are seeing but every day there's more clampdowns on women's rights, on human rights, and the only thing that the countries would issue statements saying that they are concerned, but there is no concrete action to force the Taliban to reverse these policies.
Mahsa, given the recent events in Iran, what does that mean for the grassroots feminist movement, and how hard is it for them to survive in such a seemingly hostile environment?
So I think we should take a look at the fact that oppression has been extremely severe since the beginning of the Mahsa Amini uprising. Pervasive surveillance, mass arrests of women not wearing proper hijab, not wearing hijab. And of course, the movement of removing hijab has been very pervasive all throughout Iran, but the arrests have also been equally as pervasive. But women keep on defying these laws and keep on going out without hijab. I mean, there have been numerous instances of very well-known crackdowns. You know, we had another young girl also killed in a similar way as Mahsa Amini, Armita Garavand, in 2023. During her funeral, a number of women went to her funeral and did not wear hijab and were arrested en masse and are still defiant despite their heavy jail sentences. We had a number of women arrested up to the lead up of the anniversary of Mahsa Amini, going to court without their mandatory hijab, about to start their jail sentences with defiant images of themselves without their hijab. So at great cost of increasing their sentences, they're still defying this. And the grassroots is very courageous, and I hope I can do justice to bringing their voices here, because they are on the front lines risking everything to defy this system of oppression.
Mahsa, there's a significant push now for the definition of apartheid under international law to include gender hierarchies, not just racial hierarchies. This is the hope of ending the systems of gender apartheid that we witness both in Afghanistan and Iran. Do you think this campaign is likely to be successful?
Well, we're speaking at a great time right before the draft Convention on Crimes Against Humanity is about to be voted on at the UN. So in order for gender apartheid to be added to this, the opportunity for it to be added to this will be a game changer in codifying gender apartheid within international law, allowing Afghan women, Iranian women, and other victims of these systems of oppression to find justice within the international system, to put the appropriate pressure on governments like the Taliban to not allow them to act without impunity and attend the international forums that Zahra was referring to.
Zahra, your thoughts?
Definitely, I think this is a very important concept to be recognized and added to the international law, because as we are seeing right now, what the Taliban does is being accommodated in a way. So once we have a concept like gender apartheid being recognized in international law, I hope that there is a way for women in Afghanistan, for women in Iran, to be able to call for accountability and to be confident that the countries that are dealing with this government are not going to ignore this international law.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. So let me thank both my guests, both Zahra and Mahsa. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having us.
And that's all for this edition. But in the meantime, we'd love to hear from you. So do reach out with your suggestions via Facebook, Instagram or X. So until the next show, bye for now.